your footage looks like this and you want it to look and sound like this.
It is so nice out today.
I'm going to be showing you step by step exactly how I do it with the Ace Pro. I'm going to be dropping as much value as I possibly can in this video, so make sure to watch all the way through. And if we learn something new, we have a deal that you have to subscribe. Sound fair? I will be running you through my road helmet setup, my off-road helmet setup, my Ace Pro day settings, Ace Pro off-road day settings, my Ace Pro night settings, and also my post-editing process. So let's get straight into it and talk about the helmet setups. And actually my first setup is just up there. This is my road helmet. I have gone with the Shoei XSPR Pro. I went with this one because I heard they are good with wind noise, and that is very important when motovlogging. You want as little wind getting in the helmet as possible. So to start it off, to actually mount my camera on the helmet, I'm using the chin mounts mount specifically made for the Shoei XSPR Pro. I love these mounts. They haven't let me down yet so far. They 3D print onto pretty much all different types of helmets. So you can use my code Jesse10 to save a bit of money on a chin mount if you need one. Then I just slide this piece into the chin mount, just like that. And I chuck on the Insta360 magnet mount and screw that in also. And then attaching the Ace Pro. And that has to be one of my favorite parts about the Insta360 Ace Pro, is that quick magnet mount to easily snap on and just as easily take off to swap onto different mounts or different helmets whenever I need to. It's so good. Or even just to quickly check my camera settings before I go out on a ride is so much easier than having to either take my helmet off or unscrew the camera to look at the settings. I just click it off, have a quick look, click it back on, and you're good to go. I have my Ace Pro mounted in this upside down position. I've done a lot of testing and just found this looks best for what I kind of want. I like seeing through the bars and through the bike instead of on top. So the footage looks better out of the camera, but the setup kind of looks a little strange, but it's what we're gonna go with to get the better shot. Next, we're just gonna take off that side door, grab the Insta360 mic adapter right here, simply plug that in the side right there like that. It's actually really high quality and super sturdy mounted in there. It's not shaking around or loose at all, which I really like. And plugged into the mic adapter, I have a Rode Lavalier Premium 2. Plug that in, wired around my helmet and just coming out of the cheek pad. That is how I get the crisp, clear audio of the motorcycle and also my voice. I actually only just recently upgraded to the Lavalier Premium 2. I used to use the Rode Lavalier Go, which I've been using for years and was amazing. So that is a cheaper alternative. Recently, I've just wanted to get even better audio quality, so I've gone with the Lavalier Premium 2. Next up, and very importantly on the motovlogging setup, is ND filters. These are the things that take your footage to the next level. So in this pack by Freewell for the Ace Pro, we have a polarizer, ND8, 16, and 32. Depending on the lighting and frame rate I'm using, I will use different filters, which I'll be talking more in depth about later on in the video. But just looking outside right now, if I were to go for a ride, I'd probably chuck on an ND16. And boom, that is my road helmet setup. Now let's get into my off-road helmet setup. This is the Fox V1 helmet, and as for the mounting, I've actually made a custom mount. I'll try and show you real quick right here. So inside of the helmet, I'm not sure if you can see right there, I have a yellow plate, like a little plastic plate, and 3 screws screwing into just this normal J-hook mount, and then I have the Insta360 magnet adapter screwed on there, which I can quickly and easily snap on the Ace Pro just like that. This is a more of a permanent mount where I actually had to screw into the helmet itself, which damages the helmet, I guess, and if you don't want to do any damage like that to your helmet, Insta360 have this quick and easy to attach removable helmet chin mount right here. So it's just strapped on with a couple straps, and it's actually on there really sturdy. Got the magnet adapter on there now. Easily click on the Ace Pro, and actually to help you get started motovlogging straight away, my special link in the description for the Ace Pro gets you a free motorcycle mount, as well as the L-mount magnet adapter, which allows you to quickly change the camera into a portrait position if you're shooting mainly for Instagram or anything like that. But for this video, I'm gonna show you guys on my custom made mount. So yeah, it's basically the exact same setup as my road helmet. I have another Lavalier Premium 2 wired around my helmet that plugs straight into the Insta360 mic adapter. Slap an ND filter on depending on the lighting, and that's it. The helmet setups are ready to go. Now, before we head out on a ride, there's a few settings in the back end of the Ace Pro that I highly recommend getting set up for the best video and audio quality possible. So you want to swipe from the top, swipe across and hit the settings button. Head into general, scroll down a little bit to external mic gain, and I have this set to -12 dB. I found that to be the sweet spot for my audio. Head out of general, go down a little bit further to image settings and make sure you have video encoding set to H.265 and bitrate set to high. Now with all that out of the way, let's actually go for a ride, get on the bike and get into the important stuff.
Bro's ripping on the Sur-Ron. He's shredded. I don't even know if that thing was motorized. He was pushing with his feet like the Flintstones. I used to have a little bike like that. I loved shredding on that thing. That was fun when I was little, when I was very little. These days, kids have those kind of bikes, but with motors in them now, little electric motors. Man, if I had that back then, it'd be so sick. But I was having an absolute blast with what I had back then anyway. So I have come to a beautiful scenic area so you guys can enjoy the view while I explain to you the exact settings I use on my Ace Pro to get this crispy, smooth quality. So basically, let's just get into it. First off, I film in 4K resolution. The Ace Pro can do 8K, but I don't find myself needing it for content like this. And 8K's file size is just way too intense, so I shoot 4K at 30 frames per second. And in order to get this smooth motion blur, you need to use the shutter angle rule, which is doubling the shutter speed for your frame rate. So in this case, if I'm shooting 30 frames per second, double the shutter speed will be 1/60. Now that the shutter speed is locked at 1/60, it's going to look super blown out and overexposed. Here's an example here. This is why we use ND filters. Typically when I'm shooting at 30 frames per second, and it's partly cloudy, sun's out every now and then, I use ND16. I find ND16 is what gets the correct exposure on a day like this. So right now I have ND16 applied onto the Ace Pro. Look at that cloud. Am I about to get rained on? Look at the difference. Cloud, beautiful sunny day. Whoa, I feel like I'm in a movie right now. Look at this. You know what? I'm actually going to turn around and keep riding the other way because this is a little bit depressing looking that way, to be completely fair. All right, here we go. Next up on the settings, I shoot on action wide, which is Ace Pro's widest FOV. You want the shot to look as wide as possible when motovlogging. So action wide is the way to go. Oh, hello tractor. Got the hay bales. Is that a tractor or? Yeah. I pretty much am in cars right now. The movie, the Disney movie. Well, back this way, I'm gonna go right instead. Next up on the list of settings is stabilization. And for my on-road setup, I have stabilization turned completely off because I want my footage to look as real and cinematic and action-packed as it possibly can. And stabilization, to me, takes away from that, and it just looks like I'm going faster with my head shaking around, and it's not shaking around that much because we are on a smooth road. So stabilization off for my on-road setup. Next is ISO, and I have that on 100 minimum to 500 maximum, just in case we go into any dark, shady areas like we are right now, or the clouds come out and it gets dark. We want to have the ISO be able to bump up a little bit to compensate for that, but not too high so we don't introduce grain. Like right now is a perfect example. The ISO is probably bumping up a little bit to compensate for these trees and the shadows. Still looks good. There's not too much grain introduced because we're maxing it out at 500. I have my white balance set to auto because I can't change my white balance whilst I'm riding, obviously. So I just have that set to auto because the scenery is going to change, the lighting is going to change constantly. So, and this isn't a setting. This is just something I love about the Ace Pro is the fact that I can actually. Oh, this guy's letting me through. Thank you, sir. Is the fact that I can actually trust this camera. Whenever I press the record button, it starts recording, and when I press the button again to stop recording, instantly stops recording and saves the footage. I've never had this camera freeze on me like the GoPro has. I just trust it. Basically what I'm trying to say is I just trust it. I know it's going to turn on quickly. I know it's going to start recording straight away and save the footage without any worries. Ooh, hello cows. Next up we have active HDR. I just have this turned off because we're shooting in like full manual settings, manual shutter speed, manual ISO, ND filter. It's fully manual. We don't need active HDR to be on, otherwise it's just gonna it's gonna try and fix the footage even though it doesn't need fixing, and it's gonna make it look really computerized. And don't get me wrong, active HDR has its place, but just not for this, not for motovlogging with ND filters and stuff like that. The boys. Damn, I am riding directly into the sun right now. sharpness, typically on action cameras, they like to over sharpen. So I just have my sharpness set to medium on the Ace Pro. Next up on these settings is the color profile. I actually just shoot on the normal color profile on the Ace Pro. I think the colors come out super nice, and that just leaves us with how I post-process my footage, how I edit my Ace Pro footage. Literally all I do is slap a LUT on it from my JV1 LUT pack. Let me turn the intensity down a little bit, get it just right. If you're interested in these LUTs, download link is in the description as always.
Now for my Ace Pro off-road. Now for my Ace Off Pro. My Ace Off Pro. Yeah. Now for my Ace Pro off-road settings. Now for my Ace Pro off-road. I'm so dumb. Now for my Ace Pro off-road settings. Pretty much everything is the same except for a few things. I think all of those flips were not worth it. Still shooting in 4K, but I swapped from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second just in case I need to slow any of the footage down because I am doing hardcore off-road riding. Might want to get a wheelie in slow-mo or one of my crashes in slow-mo. And for the shutter speed, remembering we still have to follow the shutter angle rule, so doubling the shutter speed for the frames per second. Now we are shooting 60 frames per second, so we would need to double that, and in this case it would be 1/120 for the shutter speed. And when your shutter speed is at 1/120, the image is going to get darker. So typically I swap out the ND16 for the ND8 when shooting 60 frames per second at 1/120 to get the image exposed right again. Still got it in the widest FOV setting, which is action wide. ISO and white balance is the same as my road setup, but unlike on my road setup where I have stabilization turned completely off for my off-road setup, I have it turned on to standard, the lowest form of stabilization. Because off-road, I'm gonna be hitting lots of bumps and jumps, going through corners, doing wheelies, and if I have stabilization off, it's gonna be very jarring and hard for the viewer to watch for a long period of time. Color profile set to normal, and again, just like my on-road setup for post-processing, I just slap one of my JV1 LUT packs on there, turn the intensity down a little bit, and it looks beautiful, ready to go. We are back home now, and check out this little like studio lighting setup I've just created. I think it looks pretty cool. Now we're gonna be talking about my night settings on the Ace Pro using pure video mode, which is Insta360's AI night mode. When the Ace Pro first came out, pure video mode had manual settings where you could adjust things like shutter speed and ISO. But since then, Insta360 have taken away manual settings in pure video mode completely for reasons I am not sure why. Probably to make the camera easier to use and more user-friendly, but as most of you know me, I love tweaking every setting possible to get the most cinematic image out of my cameras. So I'm hoping one day they bring manual settings back into pure video mode, but until then, I've found some workarounds to get my night footage looking as close and cinematic as possible. So turning on the Ace Pro, we're gonna swipe from video mode into pure video mode. So to start it off, 4K is the highest resolution you can film in, and I'm shooting at 30 frames per second. Next up on the home page, we're gonna switch it over to action view, which is Insta360's widest field of view. Swipe from the right, and as you can see, there are no manual settings to adjust. All we have is the normal auto settings. So this is what I input for those. For the EV, I change it to -0.5 because Ace Pro in pure video mode tends to overexpose the image sometimes when you don't want it to be. So I put it down half a stop to -0.5. Next is the low light stabilization. I have this completely off because I'm not really worried about stabilization. If it was up to me, I'd like to have stabilization turned completely off, but you cannot turn it off in pure video mode. Hopefully that comes one day in the future. I'm not sure though. And next on this screen for white balance, I just keep that on auto. Obviously, as the lighting is changing constantly throughout the night ride, at each stoplight, I'm not gonna change the white balance each time the lighting changes. So keep that on auto. And that is pretty much it for my night settings on the Ace Pro. Head out, enjoy the ride, let pure video mode do its thing, and most of my secret tips and tricks are in the post-editing process. Now, once you have your footage filmed, you just wanna import it into the Insta360 Studio or the Insta360 phone app. You want to navigate to the setting called Motion ND. This setting is going to try its best to emulate the shutter angle rule and add motion blur to the footage. Once you have that turned on, you want to head up here to the settings and change these parameters. For the spread, change that to 38, and for the intensity, put that to 40. I've done a bunch of testing and just found that this works best on my footage. If you turn the spread all the way up and the intensity all the way up, it's just going to look super unrealistic and just weird. So these are the two settings I found that work the best on my footage. You can mess around and try different settings for yourself and see what works best for you. And that is the workaround to make the footage look as cinematic as possible. Not being able to do manual settings is just turning on the AI Motion ND motion blur, which actually looks really good, and I'm happy with how it turned out. I'm sure if I didn't tell you guys that it was AI Motion ND, you wouldn't even been able to tell or notice. But you can take it another step further, and that's what I'm gonna be showing you how I do now in DaVinci Resolve. Check out the lighting setup I've got going on right now, testing it out for the first time. All right, we've got DaVinci Resolve open here on my laptop. You can probably do this stuff in any other editing software, Premiere Pro, anything like that. I edit on DaVinci Resolve now, so I'm gonna be showing you on DaVinci Resolve. So this is the raw footage with the Motion ND added from the Insta360 Studio, and this is the footage with all of my adjustments added. These steps aren't really needed, so only the more advanced editors will try this stuff out. So let's get straight into it. We'll hop into the color tab. I'm just gonna quickly turn everything off and then actually head back into the editor tab. And the first thing I actually do is come down to this lens correction section. And as you can see, it's already set there, but if I reset it, you can see the adjustment it does there. I just put it to 0.2. It kind of stretches out the edges and makes it look wider. So I add that little adjustment there, which I think makes a big difference. Then we will jump back into the color tab, and the first thing I'll do is add a quick little noise reduction node. This isn't needed. Obviously, the Ace Pro in pure video mode does a lot of noise reduction itself, but I think it just cleans up the image just that little bit more. And if you come into this tab right here, these are my noise reduction settings I have applied to this shot. On the next node, we have a white balance adjustment. I just put -1000 on the temperature to make it look a bit cooler because it is nighttime. Next, we have, I believe this is a curve. Yeah, just a simple curve. There's not really much going on here actually. I think I pulled down the reds a little bit as well. Not much going on there in the curve. On the fourth node here, this is a little bit more of personal preference. It is halation added onto the outsides of the frame. So if you look at the lights in this sign, if I toggle it off and on, there's a little bit of glow added, a little bit of halation. So I've just added this halation effect here in DaVinci Resolve. You can copy these settings if you want. And then under here, I've just added this power window onto it as well, so it only affects the outer edges. Now on the fifth node, I just have a bit of sharpening added to this shot. You can see there the before and after, because the noise reduction node really takes the sharpness out of the image on the first node. So on the fifth one here towards the end, we're gonna add that sharpness back into the shot. It looks so clean there. And lastly, on the sixth node, probably the most important thing of this entire edit is throwing on the JV1 LUT pack. Look at how nice that finishes off the shot. Look at that before and after, so clean, look at that. If you're interested in what LUT this is, I'll reveal selected LUT. This is the timeless one. Who would have thought? Who would have guessed that? And that is my post-editing process for my night footage. A lot more goes into the night footage over the day footage, because with the night footage, shooting in the actual camera, I'm shooting on basically auto settings on pure video mode, and then doing all the manual adjustments later in the post-editing process. With the day footage, all of the manual settings is done in camera, so there's not really much to do later on in the post-editing process. That's why I just throw one of the LUTs on and it's looking good and ready to go. And there we have it. Those were all my secrets and tips for everything got to do with motovlogging with the Ace Pro. And honestly, you can use these settings and tips with any action camera besides the low light. This is absolutely the king at low light. And also surprisingly, with the post-editing process for the low light footage, I was able to push it pretty far and get the look I was going for without overdoing it or breaking the footage too much. There was a lot of value in this video, so if you learned something, please let me know in the comments down below, and it would mean a lot to me if you guys could show this some respect, like it, subscribe. Big thanks to Insta360 for helping me out with this video. And remember, if you're interested in picking up an Ace Pro, my special link in the description gets you 2 free accessories along with the Ace Pro. Click here for another video like this one, and I'll see you over there.